Okay, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really do need you to hold our hand. And I thought it quite helpful that Africa Check sent out a release before the crime statistics. So we were ready with those numbers just to see where those increases are and where those decreases are. But the major talking point, I think you'd agree, is that statistic around the murder rate. What do those numbers say to you?
Absolutely. We actually saw the police spend a lot of time during the briefing yesterday, first of all, acknowledging the state and the increase in murder in South Africa. And when we look at the numbers, they are in fact quite shocking. In 2017-2018, we saw that there were 20,336 murders reported to the police. This in itself is a shocking number, but what is equally concerning is the increase from the previous year of 6.9%. And if we look all the way back to 1994, we see that this is the largest single increase year on year that has ever been recorded in South Africa.
Now, what are the figures telling you? What is that as a result of more people reporting murders? Or has there just been a spike?
So when it comes to the murder statistics, it's generally considered to be the most reliable of all the crime statistics. And put bluntly, that's because there is a body and they're able to record it in that way. So we have quite a high level of faith in the numbers that we've seen over the last few years. So we don't expect that that's because of an increase in reporting. What experts are pointing to is really just an increase in violence in South Africa. And really, although the overall increase in murder is shocking enough, there have been especially concerning increases in the number of murders committed against both children and women. With regards to girls under the age of 18, we saw a 10% increase in the number of murders. With women, we saw an 11% increase, and probably most astoundingly, for boys under the age of 18, we saw a 20% increase in the number of murdered boys between 2016-17 and 2017-18.
And now, these statistics are obviously important, specifically for law enforcement, to see where they should be applying attention, where they should be spending their resources. Do we know whether most of these statistics around murder are focused in urban areas or rural areas? What do those kinds of figures tell us about where we should be applying attention to even start to stem this tide?
So when the police release their crime statistics, they do release station statistics. So we are able to see the numbers from individual stations across the country, and there definitely are very obvious hotspots when it comes to crime. I think though what lots of experts have been calling for a number of years, and in particular the Institute for Security Studies, is that these crime statistics that we've got are already, a year old.
Yes.
They don't actually tell us what is happening in South Africa at the moment. And really, for the community at large, civil society, there's very little that can be done with these statistics to intervene at the moment. So if we saw more regular reporting of statistics, if there was a way for more recent information to be released regularly to the public, then that information could be instrumental in intervening and knowing where to target those interventions.
Now, these crimes that we're talking about is quite telling. It's being referred to as crimes of fear. And a very important part of our community that we believe is living in constant fear are those who live on farms. What do the statistics tell us about the situations involving farms in South Africa?
So I think it was really interesting yesterday to see that for really the first time, as far as I'm aware, the police included the number of farm murders in the official release of the crime statistics. Over the last few years, that hasn't been the case. They have not been included in the official release, and then after the release, we have often seen interest groups approaching the police, or we've seen MPs requesting those statistics in Parliament. I think that releasing them officially is a very positive sign. It's transparency, it's
acknowledgement.
It's acknowledgement, and it's not withholding that information. And what we saw was that in 2017-18, there were 62 murders of people living on farms and smallholdings. And these aren't just commercial farms. We're talking about commercial farms, but then also smallholdings, which are often around urban areas where agriculture takes place.
And if we continue to speak about crimes of fear, rape, of course, you spoke about the numbers of women and young girls being murdered, but rape is, I would think, as a woman myself, something that one is constantly aware of living in South Africa.
Absolutely, and we did see an increase in the number of rapes that were recorded by the police in 2017-18, and that was at 40,035. That number in itself is shocking, but what is more worrying is that we know that's not the number of rapes that are committed every year in South Africa. And unfortunately, we don't actually have a nationally representative reporting rate, which would allow us to calculate how many rapes haven't been reported. And while this statistic is important, and it's important for us to track it, fluctuations up and down, we should be sensitive to reading too much into them, because until we have really rigorous research, we don't really know the levels of threat that women are facing. All we can be certain about is that they're definitely higher than the numbers we saw released yesterday.
And happening on a daily basis, indeed. Stark facts, indeed. We thank you for your time. Africa Check senior researcher Kate Wilkinson joining us in the studio.